Welcome to Let's Talk Insights with Dr. Kat. I am Dr. Katerina Rizakis, and we are here today to talk about our trauma support group with Kaitlyn, who is our group facilitator. Kaitlyn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a certified life coach, a cognitive behaviorist, a group facilitator, and a grief counselor here at Insight Wellness Center. And I work with people one-on-one as well as through our many support groups.
Wonderful. And you're going to be doing our anxiety support groups, our depression groups, but today we're here to talk about the trauma support group. Trauma is a very important topic. We've noticed recently that a lot of people have been experiencing trauma, and we've been getting a lot of calls in for trauma help. Attending a support group, and you'll tell us why, is really important. What I've heard you say is that when people attend the groups, that you help them to hold space. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and how people hold space in a group, or how you help them hold space?
Yeah, so holding space actually has to do with the type of energy that I choose to bring into the space that I'm creating for the clients when they come to a support group. And most importantly, and especially in a trauma support group, my focus is to make sure that that space feels really safe for each person that's attending the group who are experiencing trauma. Why it's so important to me is because once we feel safe, we begin to have the ability to be vulnerable. And when we have the ability to be vulnerable about our trauma, that vulnerability is like a light shining on the darkness of shame. And when we move shame, we can really, really get into a compassionate and self-loving space with the work that we're doing with ourselves.
Kaitlyn, can you tell us a little bit about trauma? Who would be a good candidate for this group that you're holding?
A good candidate for a trauma support group would be anybody who's experienced trauma in their lives. So that could be childhood trauma, that could be trauma that happened, a couple months ago. And by trauma, I mean an event that elicited a trauma response. So our nervous system goes into a state of fight or flight then. Usually it's in regards to witnessing something or experiencing something pretty hard and horrible.
Recently, we've been noticing that people are coming in because they're visualizing things on TV, or they heard stories that are pretty traumatic. And I want to clarify that you don't have to actually witness the trauma. You can actually hear about something. It's how you process it.
Yeah,
they may feel traumatic, and trauma is very individualized.
And there's so much available to our eyes and ears these days with the type of media that we have and the internet. So it's brought a whole new level of trauma experiences with it.
Yeah. Especially after COVID, where people couldn't do much, to get out and to express their energy or to connect, because there's a lot of anxiety with trauma. And one of the major things with anxiety is avoidance, and that's the last thing we want to do. We want to move back into life without any fear. A lot of people who have trauma, they may select to have somebody for individual psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what's the difference between individual psychotherapy and a group experience?
Yeah, certainly. So with an individual therapist, you're really getting individualized attention, and you're working really deeply through those deeply rooted patterns in your thinking that are causing you to not exactly enjoy the reality that you're living. When you transition to a support group, which works in tandem with one-on-one therapy, you're actually getting an opportunity to experience the consensual validation that happens when you witness or hear that other people have experienced something similar to you, and they're having similar emotional responses. That's really important. It also gets you out of isolation. Trauma does have a tendency to encourage us to isolate because it's so challenging to deal with. And getting out of isolation can really reduce our feelings of distress, which overall is going to really bring, what's happening in our nervous system down.
Thanks, Kaitlyn.
Yeah.
There are some people who may not want to have individual psychotherapy, and they might be really good candidates just for group or for coaching. Do people go for coaching when they've had trauma? I know they do psychotherapy. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. And not everybody's going to do psychotherapy and group. Who would be a good candidate for the group if they're not going to do psychotherapy, and if they do select to do coaching? Can you differentiate all that for us? So
I would say that it's actually pretty important that if someone has experienced or is experiencing an immediate sense of trauma, that they get to a one-on-one therapist. the kind of work that therapist can bring in the moment is really important to how it's going to look later on for you. And then I think once a little bit of work is done with a one-on-one therapist, then it's a good and safe time to transition into a support group. But it is just really important to get that attention that you need at the onset of a traumatic experience. And then when we move into possibly one-on-one coaching is a little bit more focused on goal setting, goal attaining, and reforming negative thought patterns. It's focused on making sure that even though we've experienced trauma, we are also taking steps to move forward to build the reality that we want.
So it's basically helping people take that step into life,
yeah,
and helping them set that goals and monitoring those goals and being there and supporting them during that process, coaching them through that process. Okay.
A lot of celebrating wins.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love that. And we've heard many good things about the work that you do.
Thank you.
It's you really go from the heart and from skill, and you have a lot of insight. If anybody would like to join one of our groups, you can visit us at insightforwellness.com or call us at 925-216-3510. The information is also located below this video. Insight, INSIGHT, FOR wellness.com. We can help you register. We can also answer questions for you. Thank you for attending our session today. We're going to have a few more insights come to you about the other groups that Kaitlyn is going to be having. These are on Zoom. They are for the entire United States. So make sure you check the time. We are Pacific time. And I know that we have some people also from the EU who can attend. That's the wonderful thing about Zoom. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kaitlyn.
Thank you, Dr.